Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this morning. We're excited to be here and see so many familiar faces. This can be fun. We're going to be talking about Thanksgiving and sharing some of our best tips for maintaining your digestive health on the big day. I want you guys to feel free to jump in and ask questions at any point during our discussion this morning. I really love having a conversation with clients. So let's try to make this interactive and have a lot of fun this morning. And I don't know if everyone knows Erica here or not, but she's been with us for almost a year, and I'm excited to have her co-hosting the talk with me. You guys are going to love her if you haven't met her yet.
Nice to see you all.
So I think we're just going to start with kind of talking about the basics of digestion. Erica, do you kind of want to lead us off on that and I'll jump in?
Yeah. So I think a lot of us forget the really simple things about relaxing and preparing your body for eating. And so we're often, running from place to place. We're really distracted and then we quickly inhale our food. Actually, digestion starts by smelling the food, anticipating eating, getting the salivary glands going, but then also chewing really well. And those pieces will set you up for success. So even somebody with a really good digestive tract that doesn't do those things, that skips all those steps, they tend to have some things that come up like reflux or bloating, just because it makes it harder for the body to digest. So I think it's important to just bring those things up. Super simple, but not easy to remember.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so interesting, even though I talk about this stuff all the time, to think about that the digestive process is starting even before you eat. Our bodies are preparing. As soon as you smell food, things start kicking into place to start the digestive process off. So as you're sitting around waiting for Thanksgiving dinner to be served, as soon as you start smelling that turkey, the mashed potatoes, whatever, like your digestive system is already working for you, which I think is just the coolest.
Holidays tend to be foods you have throughout, typical family meals. They might not be things that you normally eat. I know we have a lot of patients that are on restrictive sort of diets. And then there's this feeling of, oh, I don't want them to make something separate for me, or can I have this? And there's a lot of those unknowns. So bringing a dish with that you know is safe, um, feeling comfortable enough to just ask. I think we need to be advocates for our own health, and it's not going to hurt people's feelings as much as we think it will by just asking some of those questions and bringing what you can to help with it. And I think we get so in our heads about this one meal, and it really is just one meal, like Thanksgiving, for example. Yes, it can be drug out to several different families and things like that, but I feel like in our heads over the holidays, we create this mountain out of a molehill of the number of meals that are actually going to be different. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jenny?
Yeah, I think it can be challenging. There's been some holidays where my husband and I would go to my mom's, and then we would do something with my dad's family, and then we would do something with his immediate family, and then by the end of the day, we were at his aunt's house. So where it's like one meal we were eating, I mean, you got it. You feel like you have to eat a little bit at everyone's house or else they're gonna be offended. So by the end of the day, I mean, that was a while ago, but I remember being really uncomfortable. And finally, the final destination was where we were like, okay, we're having dessert and then we're not eating anything else today. But yeah, I mean, it can be kind of hard. It can be one meal, or depending on your dynamics, it might be several meals. It can be on Thursday. I know some people that are eating on Wednesday. It's just, you might eat Wednesday one place and then Thursday another place. It can be all sorts of things, but I think I like what you said about bringing your own dish if you have special needs. Also thinking ahead of time about what might be safer bets, depending on your diet and your needs. I mean, some people do better with cooked vegetables versus raw vegetables. So maybe just trying to go for like the cooked things like the squash, for example, or the mashed potatoes. That would be easier to digest as long as you don't have an issue with dairy, because that's probably in there. Turkey by itself is pretty plain, and a lot of people tolerate that pretty well, unless you've recently done MRT and are red for turkey. I mean, there's just so many variables. So I think, like you said too, focusing on yourself and what you need is really, really important, and not being afraid to stand up and say, hey, thanks so much. I can't have that today. I brought this instead. Like, it's going to be okay.
I think some people it's based on, this food I don't do well with, but a lot of times it is the amount of food we're having. It's probably a larger meal than we're used to and a lot of different sides. So even just looking ahead of time and picking out the things you really want and making sure they're in smaller portions. So it's really easy to get overzealous and, oh, this is my favorite and this is my favorite. All of a sudden you have a plate that has too much on it. And then I don't know if you're one of those clean plate eaters or not, but it can be really hard then to stop when you're actually full. So I think that intention and that really mindful, like, this is exactly what I want, and I want to build my plate this way, and I'm excited about these foods. Food should be enjoyable, it should feel nourishing. So really, just taking a breath, taking a look, I think that can set you up for success too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I
How
think,
about how about some like herbs or spices, or are there things people can use to help enhance digestion?
yeah, I would say if you're someone that's worried about indigestion on Thanksgiving Day, a couple of really easy things. Apple cider vinegar before the big meal can be really helpful. An ounce of that and 4 to 8 ounces of water can really help with digestion. Remembering to take your digestive enzymes if you're on those before the big meal. And if you want something a little like lower level but very impactful, I would say sipping on peppermint tea throughout the day if that works for you, or even ginger tea. I think any of those four things, enzymes, peppermint tea or ginger tea, and an apple cider vinegar shot before the big meal could really be helpful in lessening the digestive load of the meal.
That's exactly what I would have said. Sometimes I notice with a large meal like that too, and let's say you forgot to take your enzyme, even taking it with the meal or after the meal is
Yes.
okay as
Yeah.
well. And if you still are feeling reflux, have an extra enzyme afterwards. So you can play around with that a little bit because these really are probably not typical meals that you have. Another thing, go ahead.
I agree. I was just gonna say too, before the meal, anything you can, I feel like family gatherings can be anxiety provoking depending on the family dynamic, or even group situations for people can just in itself bring on a lot of anxiety. So whatever you can do before the big event and probably after on both sides to just stay grounded and centered, I think is really helpful.
Mhm. So one thing that I also like to do is get movement in after a meal like that.
Oh, that's real. I love that for so many reasons.
Yeah, it helps with insulin resistance, it helps
Yep.
with digestion. So even getting out 5 or 10 minutes, have a couple of your family members or friends just go outside and take a quick walk after a meal, and that will really help to boost it all. Another big thing, a lot of people are having an alcoholic drink or two, probably something different than their average day. So, any thoughts with alcohol and what people should do?
I would just say detox support that evening. It depends on how it affects you. Um, but yeah, and again, I think walking is kind of a good thing too, like having your meal, having your drinks, and then just getting outside for some fresh air and just kind of, walking it all off.
I think some people will have more sugary drinks at that time. That'll just the sugar impact will just, for me, I know sugar gives me a headache. So if I have a sugary drink, for example, it's surprising on how much is in a lot of that stuff. You don't think it is. So I would just be mindful too at the type of drink you have because calories can really add up that way, but specifically those added sugars.
Yeah. And my 7-year-old and I this year signed up for a turkey trot. So we're going to be doing that super early on Thanksgiving morning. We're actually doing the 5K. So I'm really looking forward to like, I know when if I do that in the morning, I'm going to feel really good like for the rest of the day. I think it's just going to be like a fun kickoff to the holiday. So just whatever your thing is that will like put you in a good mood. I just think like happiness and joy and just being in a good headspace during the day will help with relaxation, which is important for digestion, but also just, helping you just feel good throughout the day. So whatever you can do, that also prevents emotional eating is another thing it can do, just to be in a solid headspace. So just think about what you need to do to take care of yourself and just let the meal just be, a meal, a regular meal.
I know a lot of people will avoid eating that morning to save up their calories or eat it all, a very large meal. And for anybody, that's hard on digestion. So again, thinking about that plate and just not overfilling it and eating slow. A lot of people will also put out a ton of snacks beforehand, like for the actual meal.
Yeah.
And that can cause issues too. If you're just like constantly grazing all along, that makes it really hard on the digestive tract because it needs rest in between the different meals. So if we're just picking all day, that can make it really difficult too.
Yeah, you're right. Those like pre-Thanksgiving snacks. Definitely love that. And if you guys have questions at any time, please hop on and ask them. We love talking to you guys and having interaction on here. So don't hesitate to jump in or throw something in the chat if you want to. Um,
I think it's hard too with travel. So I don't know about you, but I hear from a lot of patients and myself, anytime I'm traveling, it changes my transit time. So people tend to either become more constipated or have looser stools around travel. So keep that in mind and try to have those preventative measures in place if you are traveling longer distances.
yeah, I agree. That gets a lot of people, and that kind of makes me think of hydrating and the importance of that, especially if you're flying. That can be a time where we really need to concentrate on drinking lots and lots of water and making sure not to skip that, especially if there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, when you had talked about the liver detoxification components with alcohol, you need a lot of extra B vitamins if you're drinking any alcohol, and the master antioxidant glutathione or NAC is really good, or just upping your polyphenols. So, your fruits and vegetables, things like that. So, it's, I think we go in knowing only so much. We try to prepare as much as we can, and then there's always going to be unknowns. So, kind of like Jenny said, like, let's just, once we get there and just enjoy ourselves and try to make the best of it. I think oftentimes these holidays turn too much into the food focus. But if you really back up, it's not about the food. Yes, it's about their traditions and all of that with some of those meals, but it's really about spending time together with family and friends, and trying to take that focus off of food might help relieve you a little bit or not make you feel so like you're missing out on something.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you think, Erica? Like, what are your favorite tips for portion control when it comes to making your Thanksgiving plate? What would you do?
Good question. So it does not change from what I would typically recommend. I am all about the plate method, if you know what that is. So essentially, you take your smaller plate, so your 10-inch plate, and half of your plate is vegetables, mostly vegetables, could be a little bit of fruit, but so it's half produce, it's a quarter carb, and a quarter protein. So if you put your plate together like that, you cannot go wrong as far as the macros, as far as feeling full and satiated. Now, a lot of those Thanksgiving sides, a lot of those Thanksgiving veggies tend to be full of cream and butter and all that stuff. So that's where do you need to bring a side of your own that you know is safe, especially for, like the people that have to be on low FODMAP? Do you need to bring a vegetable that you're able to tolerate? So that would be kind of my thing. And it's really about, okay, I want a piece of pie. Okay, great. How do you fit that into your plate? It's not, and I'm going to have pie, and I'm going to have this, and I'm going to have that. And those snacks in the beginning, because that's where it gets out of control. So for me, it's what do I really want? And let me build my plate off of that.
Yeah, I love that. And one of my favorite things, I mean, along with apple cider vinegar first, I would say if I had to give like my best, most general kind of Thanksgiving tip, it would be apple cider vinegar before the meal. And again, we said 1 ounce of that and like 4 to 8 ounces of water, but then doing the plate method, like Erica said, and the vegetable needs to be a leafy green vegetable. So if you've got to bring your own leafy green vegetable to Thanksgiving or your own thing, like make it the leafy green vegetable and eat it first and then eat your protein. And then if you still want your carbohydrate, have that. And because it's Thanksgiving, if you want a slice of pie later, have it, but then go on a walk. And these are all things that I'm doing to optimize your metabolism. So this is like really strategic in terms of regulating blood sugar, which is going to help you feel really satisfied after the meal instead of having like a big, because what happens if you don't do that is you're going to have a big spike of blood sugar and then a crash. And then while you're crashing, you're going to feel hungry. And you can feel hungry even if your blood sugar is still high, if it's coming down fast enough, which blows my mind. Um, so to keep everything even, like we want to when it comes to blood sugar, do the ACV, eat your veggie first, then your protein, then your carb using the plate method. And then if you want dessert, have it and then go for your walk. I mean, I really think that's kind of the best pattern you can get into. And then kind of like the bonus extras, if we had to put it that way, would be like, bring your own dish or what are some other like bonusy things? Like if we were going to call that the base of the recommendations, what would our bring your own dish? Ooh, peppermint tea and ginger tea. I feel like you would get like kind of like bonus points for that. Sipping on that, and that can be kind of covert all day. And I've even heard of people it sounds really funny. I've even heard of people putting apple cider vinegar in like a water bottle and just sipping that like throughout a meal or just all day long, which as long as you don't mind the taste would be fine.
Yeah. People aren't going to like to hear this one, but getting enough sleep at night, the
Oh,
night
I like that
before,
one.
that is huge. You have such a change in your hunger cues, your hormones that day. So it can, and I know the holidays get so busy and we cut ourselves short of sleep, but that's actually when we really need extra sleep with all the travel, the movement, the stress of just, and it can be good stress, all the people you're seeing and doing, but you need good sleep.
I agree. And I had someone tell me that when I first had Andrew, she said, get all of the sleep that you can. It's a secret weapon. And sometimes, I mean, my kids are still pretty young, so sometimes I go to bed insanely early and I'm like, this is my secret weapon. I'm going to use it and I don't feel bad about it at all. I think it's a great tool and just a great way to take care of yourself.
When you talked about the salads, I was just because I've been trying to look up some recipes for Thanksgiving and they have such pretty ones out there with the pomegranates on the dark leafy greens. And those pomegranates are so good for gut health overall. But yeah, leafy greens, that's one of my to goes that I recommend every single day for most people.
Yeah, I love that. I was picturing like a kale salad with cranberries and
Um,
walnuts and I don't know, some like really good cheese. That's what I was picturing when I was talking about it. And like
yeah,
lightly sauteed kale, but not like, I mean, maybe like braised.
I really like roasted butternut squash or sweet potato or whatever on that as well.
Oh
It's really
yeah, I was thinking about like apples or maybe like plums or like pears or something. I don't know, something a little crispy.
good.
But yeah, there's lots of places that could go.
I'd be really curious. What do you get from patients, like questions around this time of year typically? Do you think we covered it all?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of angst kind of built up, especially with our group because they are so limited in diet. So one thing I'm always checking in with people this time of year is before we get started on any big dietary interventions, usually starting the beginning of November, I'm like, this is coming. Like, is this holiday a big deal to you? And yes or no. Well, if it's not, then you can start something like MRT or FODMAPs. If it is, and let's wait until after the holidays and just start it then. Because it can be such a big stressor to be at someone's house and not be able to eat any of the food. I mean, even like going out to dinner, like a less big occasion, just a random like night out with friends, it can still, I mean, there's just so many feelings around food and it's such a like social thing and nobody wants to be the person that's, I'm gluten free at the restaurant. Like nobody wants to be doing that. Or, I can't eat onion. Like no, nobody wants to be doing that. So I just to help people just sidestep it because it does cause so much angst. I try to just clear it up, in time so it's not an issue. Where if it is, then I'll even have a special session with a client once we get to a certain point in their diet, timing it with the holiday, where if they can't eat a lot of stuff, I'll make sure that they know what they can have and that they have a plan for being able to get what they need. I think and that's probably the key here, is having a plan to be able to get what you need. Because I think the anxiety is that like, I'm not going to have anything to eat, or, I might not be able to eat anything at this event. But if I can have the turkey and the green beans, then, that's at least something.
I'll have people bring a backup too.
Oh, that's
So,
good.
yeah. So if they have something, a bar or something that they can have, if nothing is okay at the meal, they at least know they're not anxious then and think they're going to be starving. They at least have something that they can fall back on that they know they feel okay with. Because, like you said, some people really can't tolerate a whole lot right when we start working with them. So that they can actually enjoy the time, it's either like bringing that dish or having a backup if nothing works. But I'm also about good, better, best. So this is for people that can tolerate some. It's about consistency, not perfection. So if you look at what is okay, like the good, better, best, we don't have to be best at an event like that. We're going to try our best, but good's going to be good enough, really, at that point. It's just taking the stress off of that.
Yeah, I like that. Progress, not perfection. It is literally one day, hopefully one meal. Hopefully you don't get drug around to 4 Thanksgivings like we used to. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, hopefully it's just one meal. It's definitely one day, maybe two if you do a Wednesday, Thursday thing. But yeah, I like that. Good, better, best. And also, like, let's say you're on a super restricted diet and you literally cannot eat anything at Thanksgiving, phase one of LEAP kind of thing, then I would just eat before you went to the event and maybe just sip on a water or some sort of like diet friendly mocktail at the event and just, and there's other things to enjoy during the holidays other than the food, right? Like the people that, there's other traditions going on. Or you could make a new tradition that year too, just to have something like special to do around the table. So I would try to think about that too. Like what else can we focus on besides the food?
Sometimes, so if we're going to an event and it's family and friends, I would hope that you could share, I'm on a restricted diet right now. I have this going on, so that everybody would be aware. I think part of it's the anxiety leading up to it and what are people going to think, and maybe and everybody's different, but sharing ahead of time and just letting them know. So if you plan to come and you plan to eat before, then people aren't going to be asking you the whole time. So it just takes the pressure off of that as well.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, there's even people in your life that might say, oh, like they're coming. I know they're gluten free. Like I'm going to make this special dish for them. We've had that happen with our family before. And that's just like so sweet and above and beyond. And like completely unexpected. Like we didn't ask for that, but like it's really nice when people think about you and do that.